Alright, so welcome to our final video. Today we're going to be looking at equations of circles. So this was something from chapter 10 in your textbook and a topic we'd spend a couple weeks on under normal terms. But I've tried to condense it here into a video. I've taken two sets of notes and put them into one. So this might be a little bit longer video, but let's go for it here. So here we have a circle. You're familiar with what that looks like right here. And it looks here like the radius of the circle is 10 units, okay? So what is true about all the points on the circle is that they are all 10 units away from the center. Now where's the center? The center is right here at the origin, the point 0, 0. Okay? So all points on the circle are 10 units away from the center. Okay, so this point here is 10 units away. This point, this point, this point, everything on the circle, every point on the circle is 10 units away from the point 0, 0. All right, so for number 2, it asks, determine all of the points on the circle where x equals 6. For each point, what is the y value? So use a right triangle to justify your answer. So here we see a right triangle, so from here to here is x units, and from here to here, the vertical distance is y. So this point on the circle has the coordinates x, comma, y. So let's draw a right triangle. I'm going to draw it up here. And it says that x is equal to 6. Okay? We know that this right here is the radius. And the radius of the circle is 10. So what is the y value? How can we solve for that? Well, of course, with right triangles, when we know two sides, we can use Pythagorean theorem. And if we work out the Pythagorean theorem correctly, we get y equals 8. Okay? So if this is 6 units and this is 8 units, that means this point up here on the circle must be 6, 8. Okay, so here it says Mia picks a random point on the circle and labels it x, y. Unfortunately, she does not know the value of x or y. So how can we write an equation that relates x, y, and 10, because 10 is the radius, based on this diagram right here? And it gets back to what we did to solve for y in this one. We used the Pythagorean theorem. So if we take x squared plus y squared, then by Pythagorean theorem, that has to equal the hypotenuse, or the radius squared, which in this case is 10. So this would be an equation we could write. X squared plus y squared equals 10 squared. And then simplifying that, we have x squared plus y squared equals 100. Okay, so with this equation, if I know what either x or y is, then I can solve for the other one by subtracting and then taking the square root of both sides. All right, does this equation work for the points 10, 0, and 0, 10? Let's check it out. If we plug in 10, 0, that means x is equal to 10, y is equal to 0. 10 squared plus 0 squared equals 100. 10 squared is 100. Plus 0 equals 100. And so yeah, we get 100 on both sides here, so that checks out. What about 0, 10? 0, 10 means x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 10. So when we plug these in, we're going to get 0 plus 100 equals 100. And again, we get 100 equals 100. All right, so what does that explain? It explains these points on the circle. Is 10, 0 on the circle? Well, yeah, it's this point right here. This is 10, 0. 0, 10, that would be up here. So because those two sets of values worked in our equation, that means that those points are on the circle. What about negative 8, 6? Negative 8, 6, so x is equal to negative 8, y is equal to 6. Be sure to put any negative number in parentheses when you square it, so you know it's going to turn out positive. So we'd have 64 plus 36 equals 100. And 64 plus 36 is 100. And so yeah, it does work out. So what does that mean? That means the point negative 8, 6 is on our circle. So let's see, negative 8 would be about here. And then 6 would be up here. So just estimate that point, negative 8, 6. And so a simple equation of a circle, and this is important, when the center is 0, 0, is going to be x squared plus y squared. And remember, 10 was our radius, and 10 squared was 100. Okay? So instead of 100, I'm going to put r squared. So if I know the radius, then I could put a number over here by squaring it. Okay, that leads us to the next example here. What if another circle has a center 0, 0, but has a radius of 4 units? What would the equation of the circle be? It would be x squared plus y squared, but the radius is 4, so it would be equal to 4 squared. So the equation would be x squared plus y squared equals 16. Pretty simple. Okay, let's try a graph. Graph the circle with an equation x squared plus y squared equals 36. So what is our radius going to be here? Remember, 36 is equal to r squared. So r squared is equal to 36. If we take the square root, and r is always going to be positive, so we don't have to worry about plus or minus, r is going to be equal to 6. So remember, the center is at the origin, okay? And to graph a circle like this, what I like to do is make 4 points and then draw the best circle I can through those 4 points. So we're going to go 6 up, 6 to the right, 6 down, and 6 to the left. And then I just try to draw the best circle I can here. There you go. That's our circle. Okay. Now, what if the center of a circle is not at 0, 0, is not at the origin? So let's use this graph here to construct a circle with a center at A, which is at 3, 1, and a radius of 5 units. So let's first find the center. It's going to be 3 to the right and 1 up. Right here, so this is point A. Now remember what I did on the last graph? I counted the radius up, right, down, and to the left. So here the radius is 5. So I'm going to count 5 up. Remember, I'm starting at 1, not 0, so that's going to put me at 6. Okay. 5 to the right is going to put me, I started at 3, so I'm going to be at 8. 5 down, I start at 1, and now I'm going into the negative. It's going to put me at -4. And then 5 to the right. Started at 3, it's 3 to get here, and then 2 more to get to -2. All right, so now I have the 4 points, and I draw the circle. Okay, now the next part is, how am I going to write an equation of a circle that looks like this that doesn't have a center at the origin? So we have a new circle here. It says, in the diagram, point P represents a point on the circle. So right here. We see that the center is from the last circle at 3, 1. So first they want us to find the length of PB. Okay, so PB is this part of this right triangle that they drew. And this distance up to the point on the circle all the way down to the x-axis, this is y. So PB is going to be y minus this length right here, and this length is 1. Okay, so PB is going to be equal to y minus 1. Okay, same idea for AB. This whole distance from the y-axis over to where B and P are is x. Okay, so AB is just this part right here. So what's this distance right here from the y-axis to point A? That's 3. Okay, so AB is going to be x, the whole thing, minus 3. Okay, so now we're going to be able to write an equation, and instead of just saying x squared plus y squared equals the radius squared, we're going to use what we found for AB and PB to write the equation. So our equation is going to be x minus 3 squared, okay, because that's what AB is, plus y minus 1 squared will give me the radius squared, okay? And the radius squared here is going to be 5 squared. So rewriting it a second time, equals 5 times 5 is 25. And that's our equation of this circle. X minus 3 quantity squared plus y minus 1 quantity squared equals 25. So now I'm going to give you the graphing form for a circle. And remember, we've talked about the graphing form for a parabola, graphing form for absolute value function, and now graphing form of the circle. And it's going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared, or r squared. So this will tell you two different important features of the circle. It'll tell you where the center is, and it will tell you how long the radius is. The center is going to be h comma k. So thinking back to the parabola, when we want to find the x-coordinate, remember when it's inside the parentheses, we take the opposite of the number that we see. So if this was like in the last equation, x minus 3, then the x-coordinate of the center would be 3. And remember, it was y minus 1, so the y-coordinate of the center would be 1. So the center of the last circle is 3, 1. And then the radius is going to be the square root of r squared, which is r. Okay, so once we have that in our back pocket, we can just look at a graph of any circle as long as we're able to determine where the center is and how long the radius is, and we can write the equation. So let's look at this circle here. The center let's see, that's 3 to the right and 3 up. So the center is at 3, 3. The radius if we go here down, or here to the left, or up, looks like our radius here is going to be 2, from 3 to 1 here, from 3 to 5, from 3 to 1, 3 to 5. Yeah. So the radius is 2. Okay. So what's r squared going to be? 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, so now we have everything we need to write the equation. Remember, it's x minus h, so x minus 3 squared plus y minus k, so y minus 3 squared equals r squared, which is 4. Don't forget to square the radius when you write the equation. Okay, let's look at B. First, you have to determine where is the center. Center is 2 to the left and 1 up. So that's going to be -2, comma 1. And now the radius. Let's see. It looks like we go from -2 to +1. So this distance is going to be 3. And you could go any of the directions to get that. It should be the same. So r is equal to 3. That means r squared is equal to 3 squared, which is equal to 9. Okay, so now we have to be careful when we plug in the center. Remember, it's x minus h. So it's going to be x minus -2 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 9. And we know that x minus -2 is the same as x plus 2. So we have x plus 2 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 9. Okay. What about a circle with the center 2, 7 and a radius 1 unit? So r is equal to 1. R squared is equal to 1 squared, which is also 1. Now we're ready to write the equation. X minus the x coordinate of the center squared plus y minus the y coordinate of the center 7 squared equals 1. Okay, so what about a standard form for the equation of a circle? Okay, it's also known as the general form, and the general form is not very useful because it doesn't tell you much about the circle. So what we want to do typically when we get a circle in general form is to transform it and put it into graphing form, okay? Because graphing form is a lot easier to work with and gives us a lot more information. So let's look at this circle right here, okay? Hopefully you're getting the hang of writing equations in graphing form of circles. So write the equation of this circle in the graphing form. So just like we did in the last couple examples, we find the center. The center is at -3, -2. And the radius is 1, 2, 3. Radius is 3 in any direction. That means r squared is equal to 3 squared, which is equal to 9. So writing the equation out, remember it's x minus -3, which is x plus 3 squared, plus y minus -2, which is the same as y plus 2 squared, equals the r squared, 9. Okay. So now we're going to take that equation and write it out in the general form, okay? And typically you wouldn't be asked to do this, but we want to find the link between the two. And there you see the general form, ax squared plus ay squared plus bx plus cy plus d, d is the constant, equals 0, okay? So the equation that we wrote above, x plus 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 9. Okay, so to get it in the general form, what we got to do is multiply this out. We're going to have to multiply the x plus 3 times x plus 3 and the y plus 2 times y plus 2. Okay, so this is, hopefully you remember this from integrated 1, and this isn't factoring, we're going the other way. We are multiplying, so it would be x squared, 3x, and 3 times 3 is 9. And then for this one, y plus 2, y plus 2, y squared, 2y, 2y, and 4. Okay, so we're going to write these out. X squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9 plus y squared plus 2y plus 2y plus 4. And remember, it's equal to 9. So now we're going to combine the like terms. Looks like we have a 3x and a 3x. We have a 2y and a 2y. And we also have a 9 and a 4 that we can combine. So we're going to have x squared plus y squared plus 6x plus 4y plus 13 equals 9. Now the final step would just be to subtract 9 from both sides to make this side equal to 0. And so our final answer is x squared plus y squared plus 6x plus 4y, 13 minus 9, so that gives me 4, equals 0. And that's our general form. Okay, so how can we do this backwards? Okay, so let's say that we were given the general form and we want to write it in the graphing form, which is a lot more useful again because that gives us information about the center and the radius. Can't really get much from this. So let's say that you're given this, x squared plus y squared plus 4x plus 2y equals 11. How can we change it to graphing form? And to change it to graphing form, we use completing the square. And since we have to do it for both the x squared and the y squared, we have to do it twice. All right, so let's start with this equation, x squared plus y squared plus 4x plus 2y equals 11. And what I'm going to do is group the 4x with the x squared. I'm going to leave some space, plus y squared with the 2y. And I'll just leave the 11 over there. I'm going to leave some space. And now we have to come up with the two numbers that are going to complete the square here and here. And then we add them to both sides. So remember, it is b over 2 squared, but here we're going to have two b's. So our first b is going to be this number in front of x. So let's find that number first. So this one is going to be 4 over 2 squared, which is equal to 2 squared, which is equal to 4. So it's good to just do one at a time. So I'm going to add 4 there, and then I'm going to add 4 here on the other side. And now I'm going to do the same here with the 2y. b over 2 squared, again, but here b is equal to 2. And that's going to give me 1 squared, so 1. So I'm going to add 1 here. I'm going to add 1 to this side. Okay, so now you're going to factor here to write in the perfect square form. And your result is going to be this. You're going to have x plus 2 squared. So I'm skipping the factoring part in the interest of time. So you're going to factor twice. And then you're going to factor y squared plus 2y plus 1. And you're going to get this. Y plus 1 squared is equal to 11 plus 4 plus 1. That's 16. And now look at the information you can get. You can get the center. Center is going to be -2, comma, -1. And the radius is going to be the square root of 16, which is 4. So now you could graph that circle if you were asked to do so. Okay, so let's look at a couple more examples like that. So for example 7, x squared plus y squared plus, minus 4x plus 6y minus 3 equals 0. So this is in the true general form where it is equal to 0. So the first step here is we're going to have to add 3 to both sides. And when I rewrite this a second time, I'm going to group the negative 4x with the x squared and the 6y with the y squared. So I'm going to have x squared minus 4x, leave space, plus y squared plus 6y. And then remember, we added 3 to both sides, so now I'm going to have a 3 over here. Okay, so now we have to find the two numbers that work. It's going to be b over 2 squared. So in this case, it's going to be negative 4 divided by 2 squared. This gives me negative 2 squared, which is equal to positive 4. Remember, always adding when you're completing the square for this step. And then for this one, it's going to be 6 over 2 squared, which is equal to 3 squared, which is equal to 9. And I should have done it right away, but I add 4 over here, and I also add 9 over here. Okay, so now we're going to rewrite this. Now, if you remember the shortcut, great. If you don't remember the shortcut, then you would just factor again, x squared minus 4x plus 4, and your result should be this, x minus 2 quantity squared, and then y squared plus 6y plus 9. If you factor that correctly, you should get y plus 3 quantity squared equals 3 plus 4 plus 9, which is 16. So when we want to do the graph, we need to know the center. And the center is going to be 2, comma, negative 3. And the radius is going to be the square root of 16, which is equal to 4. So when you're given the graph and you're given the radius, you have to square it to get the equation. But when you have the equation and you want a graph, you have to take the square root of r squared. Just remember, this number is r squared. All right, so now we're ready to graph. 2 to the right, 3 down, and then 4 in each direction. One from the center, 2, 3, 4. It's actually there. And there. And now we draw the circle. And that's our graph. All right, so obviously if you're proficient in completing the squares, circle should be a snap. Let's try one more here. Pretty similar to the last one. We have x squared minus 4x plus y squared plus 10y plus 4 equals 0. So again, our first step is going to be to subtract 4 from both sides for now. So we've got x squared. Remember to group. It already is grouped. That's nice. Now we have a negative number over here right now, but that's not a cause for concern because remember, we're going to be adding two numbers over here later. All right, so the first number we're going to add is negative 4 over 2 squared, which is going to give me positive 4. So I have to add 4 over there. See, we're back to 0 already. And then we're going to take 10 divided by 2 squared. That's equal to 5 squared, which is equal to 25. So I'm going to add 25 there and 25 over there. Okay, time to factor or use the shortcut. The shortcut is going to give us this faster. Remember, it's the same sign and then half of the number in front of the middle term. So plus 5 squared is equal to -4 plus 4 plus 25 gives us 25. So yeah, it's nice when this is a perfect square, because when you take the square root, you get a nice round number for the radius. All right, so the center is going to be 2, -5. And the radius is going to be the square root of 25, which is equal to 5. All right, so now we're going to find those on the graph. 2 to the right, 5 down. That's the center. And then 5 in each direction. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So now we'll just draw the 4 points. And that is it. So thanks for sitting through my videos for the last few weeks. Thanks for a great year, and hope to see everyone around next year when we're all good and safe. All right, have a good one.